Hi students, today we are going to start with a Spring framework which is there in our CO4. So Spring framework is an open source lightweight framework which was implemented by Rod Johnson in 2003. Okay, Spring is an open source and a lightweight framework. So why we are calling it as a lightweight? Because in Spring framework also we are going to use POJO classes. Already we used POJO class concept in Hibernate also. So POJO class contains only setters and getters. Okay. So Spring framework is also a non-invasive framework. What is the meaning of non-invasive? Already you know in Hibernate. So non-invasive means here Spring framework is not forcing a programmer to implement or extend your class which is there in the Spring API. So that's why it is called as a non-invasive framework. So I mean in the POJO class no need to implement or extend your POJO class. So just you have to write a class. Within that class you have to create setters and getters based on the variables which are declared in your class. Okay. So here in Spring framework, what is the advantage? Already you know Hibernate framework. So in Hibernate framework we will work with only database operations. So but in Spring framework we can do all type of applications. I mean console application, web application and window application. Any type of applications we can implement in the real time. Okay, so that's why Spring is having that much of demand in the network, in the market. Okay, so what type of applications means we can create any type of application like console application, web application, enterprise application development, any type of application we can implement. Okay, so to implement such type of applications in Spring framework they have introduced different types of modules. So in Spring what type of modules are there? I am going to explain now. See here. In Spring we have 6 modules. The first module is Spring IOC module, and second one is Spring Context or J2EE module, and the third module is Spring JDBC module. I mean we can integrate with a JDBC also from Spring framework. Okay. Then Spring ORM module. I mean we can integrate with Hibernate. We can integrate with Hibernate. Okay. So the fifth module is Spring Web MVC module. We can implement web applications with the help of Spring with the use of this particular module. Okay. The next module is Spring AOP. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. Aspect Oriented Programming. So these are the 6 modules they have given. But among these 6 modules in our syllabus, we are having Spring IOC module and Spring JDBC module, Spring ORM module and Spring Web MVC module. Only these 4 modules we are going to cover in our syllabus. Okay. So first we have to understand what is the Spring IOC module. Okay. So before going to this Spring IOC module, we have to understand the advantage of a Spring. Why this much of demand is there in the market for the Spring framework? Because of 3 advantages. The first advantage is loose coupling. and the second one is easy to test, and third one is simplicity. Okay, so here these three are the advantages of Spring framework. Okay, so here we have to understand the simplicity. What is the advantage of simplicity here? Okay, simplicity means here by using Spring framework, even though if you develop any complex application, the code becomes very easier. That is the advantage in the Spring framework. Why? Because here Spring completely we are writing as a bean concept, Spring Bean concept. Spring Bean means, already I told you in the JSP, Spring Java Bean concept. So a Java Bean contains setters and getters as well as data access logic also. But in Spring Bean we are going to write only setters and getters. But in the market, generally in the interview point of view, they will interviewer will ask you what is the difference between Spring Bean and normal Java Bean. See, in the Java Bean we must define a default constructor, but in Spring Bean, based on the context, may or may not be available the default constructor in the Spring Bean. That is the only difference we have to tell to the interviewer. Okay, so remember this point. So there is a difference between Spring Bean and Java Bean. Okay, so now see the next advantage, that is the loose coupling mechanism. Okay, before understanding the loose coupling mechanism, we have to understand what is the tight coupling mechanism in the Java. So in your Java SE environment itself, already you know about tight coupling. Even though I am going to explain what is the tight coupling and what is the meaning of loose coupling and what is the difference between these two also, I am going to explain by taking one example now. Let us see that example now. Okay, see. See here I am going to take one class called, just I want to change the font. Okay, see here, class traveler, I am going to take one class, as well as I am going to define another class called car. In the car class, I am going to define a method called void move. In this method, I am going to just move by car. One message I have given. So in the traveler class, see, just assume traveler is a class which is going to start the journey by using car object. So that's why here I am creating car object directly in my traveler class. Here I am writing one method called start journey. You can define any method. So a traveler wants to start the journey by using car only. So that's why here I am creating car object. With the help of car object, I am calling move method. Now I want to test this application. For testing purpose, here I am writing one client program. So in the client program, here I am defining a main method, public static void main, string array. Here I am creating the object of traveler. T is equal to new traveler. So using T, here I am calling start journey method. See, first save this program. On the desktop I am saving. My main program class name is client.java. Okay, so open the command prompt. Java C client.java client. Here, see the output, move by car. Okay. Now understand this concept. See here, traveler is a class who is depending on a class called car. Okay. So here car class is nothing but a dependency. Okay. Remember, here car class is called as dependency class. And traveler class is called as dependent class. So here we can see the dependent and dependency relationship between traveler and a car. Okay, if we want to travel to the some location by bike, what we have to do? Compulsory we have to write a bike class. And we have to define the same method or any other method. Once again, we must change the definition in the traveler class. Okay. So whenever you do the changes in the dependency, you must change the definition of dependent class. So I mean here there is the tight coupling mechanism between dependent and dependency class. Okay now. So did you understand? So see here, dependent and dependency, between these two classes, if there is tight coupling mechanism, it is not sufficient for the application development. Okay. So